Under the dappled light filtering through the dense canopy, Oliver Cryer, a middle-aged man with sun-darkened skin and a beard like untrimmed moss, was hacking away at the undergrowth with a machete. The blade, worn thin from years of use, sang a rhythmic tune as it slides through vines and small saplings. Sweat trickled down his neck, collecting in the fabric of his tattered shirt. "Blasted thing," he muttered, wrenching the machete free from a particular stubborn root. He'd named it Axioms for no other reason than it sounded suitably sharp and severe. The forest, however, seemed to disagree, tangling his blade at every turn. His home stood at the edge of a clearing, barely distinguishable from the jungle that had begun to reclaim it. It was a small wooden shack, its once bright paint now faded and peeling like sunburned skin. A rusty metal bucket sat by the doorstep, overflowing with fresh water collected from the nearby stream. Inside, the shack was sparsely furnished. A hammock hung in one corner, swaying gently with the draft from the open window. A small wooden table held pride of place in the center, its surface scarred by countless meals eaten alone. A pile of books, yellowed with age and humidity, lay stacked neatly on one side. Oliver, as he preferred to be called, was a man who had left civilization behind 5 years ago. The reasons were his own, whispered secrets he kept from even the trees that surrounded him. All they needed to know was that he was here now, living in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, far from the world that had once been his. A sudden rustling at the door drew his attention. He set down Axioms and picked up a spear that leaned against the wall instead. The rustling grew louder, more insistent. Then, a small, furry head poked through the doorway, followed by a body that Oliver recognized immediately. "You're back," he said softly, lowering the spear. "I thought you'd forgotten this place." The capuchin monkey jittered in response, leaping onto the table and snatching a ripe banana from the pile there. It was one of the creatures that had first shown Oliver around when he'd arrived. Scrawny and lost among the towering trees, they'd become familiar faces over time, stopping by occasionally for a snack or simply to say hello. Oliver watched as the monkey peeled the banana, its deft fingers moving with practiced ease. "I should have known better than to worry," he said, chuckling. "You're not one to forget a free meal." The monkey squealed in agreement, tossing the peel at him before bounding out of the shack, clearly expecting to be followed. Oliver shook his head, but grinned nonetheless. All right," he called after it, "but don't expect me to run today. I've got work to do." The monkey disappeared into the underground, leaving him to his chores. Oliver picked up Axioms again. Turning back to the task at hand, his body moved automatically, hackling and slicing, clearing a path through the jungle. His mind, however, wandered. It roamed back over the years since he'd left behind his old life. He'd been a wealthy man then, living in a towering glass and steel building in the heart of Sao Paulo. Now he was little more than a hermit, living off the land and communicating only with the occasional passing trader or indigenous tribe member. The thought should have filled him with regret. Instead, he felt peace, contentment, a sense of belonging that had eluded him in the city. Here he was not Oliver Cryer, wealthy businessman and philanthropist. Here he was simply Oliver, a man living in harmony with the forest. A cry pierced the air, startling him with his thoughts. It was a loud, harsh sound, echoing through the jungle like a fingernail scraping down glass. Oliver paused, listening. The cry came again, closer this time. It was accompanied by something else, a low growl, menacing and threatening. He set axioms aside and picked up his spear again, gripping it tightly. He knew this forest as well as any man could know a living, breathing entity. Better perhaps than most, but danger could still lurk around any corner. The cries led him towards the stream that ran nearby. As he approached, he saw something on the banks, a small figure struggling against another larger one. A child, maybe 8 years old, darkened by dirt and grime. They were being attacked by a jaguar. "Get back!" Oliver roared, charging forward with his spear raised. The jaguar turned at his approach, lip curling back to reveal gleaming teeth. It snarled at him, but Oliver held firm. "Go on," he shouted, waving his spear threateningly. "Leave us. This is not your territory." The jaguar hesitated for a moment before pounding away into the undergrowth. Only when it had disappeared did Oliver lower his spear and turn to the child. "You all right?" he asked softly, crouching down beside him. The child nodded, rubbing at his scraped-up knees. He was dressed in ragged clothes similar to Oliver's own, clearly another member of the forest community who had stumbled upon hard times. "Thanks," he said quietly. "I thought it was gonna kill me." Oliver smiled gently at him. "I'm Oliver," he introduced himself. "What's your name?" "I'm Lua," he replied with a tentative smile on his own. "Well, Lua," Oliver said, standing up and offering a hand to help him to his feet. "Why don't you come back to my shack? I've got some food there. You can tell me how you ended up tangling with a jaguar." Lua hesitated for a moment before taking his hand and letting him pull him up. "Okay," he agreed softly. As they made their way back to the shack, Lua chattered nervously about the jaguar attack, punctuated by occasional giggles when Oliver made a funny face or told a joke. He listened with a half an ear, his mind already planning how to prepare a hot meal for the child. It had been too long since he'd cooked for someone else. Back at the shack, Lua watched wide-eyed as Oliver built a fire in the small pit outside and began preparing a stew from the ingredients they had gathered on the way back. He talked as he worked, telling Lua about the plants he was using, how to identify them, how to prepare them. Lua listened eagerly, asking questions and helping where they could. They seemed to relax as the day wore on, the initial fear and tension replaced by a quiet curiosity. As night fell, they sat together around the fire, spooning up bowls of stew. Oliver told Lua stories of the forest, tales of spirit animals and ancient gods, of hidden waterfalls and secret paths. Lua listened, enraptured, eyes sparkling in the firelight. Eventually, Lua yawned, rubbing at his eyes tiredly. Oliver smiled at him. "You should get some sleep," he suggested gently. "There's an extra hammock inside if you want it." Lua nodded, climbing wearily to his feet. "Thank you," he said softly, "for everything." Oliver watched as he disappeared into the shack, leaving him alone by the fire. He sat there for a long time, watching the flames dance and listening to the night sounds of the jungle. And then he stood up, stretching his back before turning towards the shack. Inside, Lua was already fast asleep in the hammock, his breathing slow and steady. Oliver paused by the door, looking down at the child. He hadn't realized how much he'd missed having someone else around. He crossed to the other hammock, climbing in and covering himself with a thin blanket. As he lay there, listening to Lua's even breaths, he couldn't help but feel a sense of contentment. Maybe this is what life was supposed to be like, he thought. Simple, meaningful. Days turned into weeks as Lua stayed on at the shack, growing stronger and more confident with each passing day. He learned quickly, picking up the skills Oliver taught him: how to track animals, identify edible plants, build shelter. In return, Lua brought a sense of joy and wonder that Oliver hadn't felt in years. One day, as they sat together by the stream, Lua looked up at him with serious eyes. "Oliver," he said slowly, "my family will be looking for me. I should go home soon." Oliver's heart constricted at the thought of Lua leaving, but he nodded understandingly. "Of course," he agreed. "We'll find them together." It took several days of searching before they finally found Lua's tribe, a small group of indigenous living deep within the forest. They greeted Lua warmly, enveloping them in hugs and tears. Oliver hung back, watching from a distance. An elder approached him, extending a hand in greeting. "Thank you for keeping our child safe," they said solemnly. "We are grateful." Oliver took his hand, squeezing it gently. "It was my pleasure," he replied honestly. The elder nodded, looking around at the dense jungle that surrounded them. "You live alone here?" he asked, curiously. Oliver shrugged. "Yes," he admitted. "It's simpler that way." The elder raised an eyebrow, but didn't press further. Instead, he said, "We will leave a path open for Lua. If he wishes to visit, you are welcome to come with him." Oliver smiled at the unexpected offer. "Thank you," he said genuinely. That night, as they walked back towards the shack together, Lua took Oliver's hand. "I don't want to go," he said sadly, "but I miss my family." Oliver squeezed his hand reassuringly. "I understand," he said softly, "and you can come back anytime you want." Lua looked up at him, eyes shining in the moonlight. "Really?" he asked softly. "Really," Oliver promised. "This is your home now, too." True to his word, Lua returned often over the following months, bringing with him news of the outside world and laughter that filled the once silent shack. With each visit, Oliver found himself looking forward to Lua's company more and more. One day, as they sat together by the fire, Lua said suddenly, "Oliver, do you ever want to leave here?" The question took him by surprise. He looked down at Lua, saw the genuine curiosity in his eyes. It was true that he'd once thought of nothing but escaping this place. But now? "No," he answered honestly. "This is where I belong." Lua smiled at him, leaning against his shoulder trustingly. "Good," he murmured, sleepily. As Oliver watched Lua drift off to sleep that night, he realized how much he had become a part of his life. More than that, Lua had shown him that he could still connect with others, still care about someone besides himself. He looked out into the darkness, feeling a sense of contentment wash over him. The forest was his home, yes, but it was Lua who had turned it into a real family. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like he truly belonged. The end. I hope you enjoyed listening to this story. Please press the like button and subscribe to this channel for future updates and new stories. Thanks for watching.